Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Smith. I am a student at Christian Life College, and I am doing a video presentation for the general psychology course here at the college. And our presentation is about mental disorders, and I am going to talk about schizophrenia today. The subtopics that we will discuss today is the disorder psychological or psychiatric? What are the causes of the disorder? Is there a spiritual factor to be considered in diagnosing the disorder? What are the symptoms? What are some methods of curing or managing symptoms? And what type of Christian counseling can be helpful? Well, first we need to understand exactly what schizophrenia is. And from the reading that I've done, I've come to the conclusion that it is a severe psychological disorder, and it's characterized by a highly disordered thought process. You know, in reading about schizophrenia, some of the things that we notice that are symptoms of schizophrenia, there's three major, how can I put it? There are three major subcategories of the symptoms that go along with schizophrenia. There are three major ones. The first one is a hallucination. Second one is delusions. Third one is catatonia. Now, I'm going to go briefly into each and every one of these. A hallucination, we've all heard that term. It is basically hearing or seeing, sometimes smelling or tasting things that are not there. Hearing voices outside of the head, seeing an apparition, or maybe seeing the ghost of a family member that's been dead for years. Delusions, they're unusual, false, sometimes really far out beliefs that are not part of one's culture. That it's not something that is believed by most people. One of the major delusions that people have when they suffer with schizophrenia is thinking that they're God. Like they'll take on the persona of they're Jesus or Buddha or something like that. The third one is catatonia, and this one's quite different. I didn't know this about schizophrenia. It is a state of being immobile or unresponsive, and it lasts for actually quite a long period of time. There have been cases that are documented where it lasts for days. Now that we've gone through the symptoms, we're going to go into some of the causes here. In the reading that I've done, I've noticed that most people will have their different conclusions of what causes it. And, there's no pinpointed exact cause of schizophrenia, but there are two that I saw that were founded because they had scientific backing. There's genetics. There's studies that have shown a genetic similarity to a person with schizophrenia increases the risk of developing schizophrenia. There are genetic traits that they've noticed in people that deal with schizophrenia that they can kind of pinpoint. However, the researchers are still trying to pinpoint the exact chromosomal location of those genes that cause susceptibility to schizophrenia. Another is structural brain abnormalities. They've noticed by scientific study that brain abnormalities with schizophrenic people, MRIs have shown enlarged ventricles in their brain, and this denotes that there is a deterioration of their brain tissue that is going on. But even with that being found out, the researchers and scientists will tell you that the differences between the brain of a schizophrenic person and someone who does not have schizophrenia is not that different. The most common mode of treatment is medication. Because this is a psychological disorder, most of them, if not all of them, are prescribed what is known as an antipsychotic drug, which is basically a drug that is there to help balance any imbalance in their brain, any chemical imbalance that would cause them to not be able to function normally. As far as the spiritual factor to be considered in this, there are some spiritual factors to this. I mean, you can. I mean, Christianity kind of puts a stigma of demonic presence on a lot of things, and a lot of times it's not that way. There are some times that schizophrenia, the disorder, can be confused with a spiritual attack. The hearing voices. I remember a time in my own life where, and I don't know if we're really supposed to share stuff like this, but I remember a time in my own life where I went through a very, very heavy attack, and I would be at work by myself. I would move around the building a lot, and there were certain areas of the building that I had access to that nobody else had access to. And I would be in those areas where there wouldn't be anybody, and I would hear someone call my name, or I would have thoughts, like I would hear voices condemning me for things I didn't even know was going on, and just all sorts of stuff. It started to freak me out. And I actually called a friend of mine who works in this field, and they began to tell me some things, and they began to talk to me, and they're like, you know what, you don't really need to worry. And they actually prayed with me. They're a Christian counselor, about this situation that I was going through. I was under an actual attack, a spiritual attack, but sometimes people can confuse a spiritual attack with a psychological disorder. There are types of counseling that can be done. Most, actually all patients diagnosed with schizophrenia are told, and they are basically told they need to be in a counseling session at least once or twice a month at the very least, on top of their medication, just to really talk about what's going on and make sure there's no other underlying causes that are going on other than what they're being dealt with. There are, as far as Christian counseling, I looked up several different websites and churches that offer counseling, but I didn't really see in my research an actual Christian counseling type way of dealing with schizophrenia. Even some Christian counselors will recommend and put their patients on the antipsychotic drug in order just to help balance them out in their mind. And I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. God bless.